In the glittering ballroom of a Las Vegas casino hotel, surrounded by clinking glasses and forced smiles, my husband leaned close to my grandfather on what was supposed to be his 80th birthday celebration and said calmly, "Just sit here. We'll go handle the arrangements and come right back." But as the minutes stretched into 35 agonizing ones, realization hit me like a slap. They had no intention of returning. My grandfather, confused and slipping deeper into dementia, was being deserted right there amid the crowd like forgotten baggage. My name is Alexis Scott. I am 35 years old. My husband was betraying the only man who had ever truly cared for me by abandoning him in plain sight, and the pain tore through me like nothing else. That moment sparked something irreversible inside me. Before I dive deeper into how everything shattered after that, if this kind of cold calculation from your own husband hits home, or if you've ever felt that gut punch of family betrayal, hit like and subscribe so you catch the rest. Comment your city below. I'd love to know you're watching and what you'd have done right then. I did not think. I just moved. My heels clicked across the marble floor as I pushed through laughing guests in their sequined dresses and tailored suits, heart hammering so loud it drowned out the jazz band. There sat my grandfather in that velvet chair near the stage, fingers tracing the edge of his old pocket, watch eyes scanning the room with that lost, hopeful look he got when the fog rolled in. "Grandpa," I gasped, dropping to my knees in front of him, taking his hands that had gone cold, despite the warm room. "It's me. It's Alexis." His eyes flickered with a spark of recognition before confusion clouded them again. "Rose," he whispered, voice thin. I did not correct him. He called me that when fear crept in the name of his late sister. "It's okay," I said softly, squeezing those scarred hands that once fixed everything from broken bikes to broken hearts. "I'm here. You're not alone." Across the ballroom, my husband Dylan appeared at the edge of the crowd, phone in hand, face tight with irritation. He had initiated this whole mess, just like he always did, when my grandfather needed anything more than a quick visit. "Alexis, what are you doing?" he called out, voice low, but carrying that sharp edge he saved for moments when I stepped out of line. "You're making a scene? Think about how this looks to my colleagues." My father, Ronald Coleman, and my mother, Kimberly Coleman, hovered behind him, faces pale, but neither spoke up. They never did when Dylan took the lead. My husband stepped closer, voice dropping to that silky tone he used for gaslighting. "It's for his own good, sweetheart. The facility has a spot ready. Why drag this out? You're too attached, always have been. This guilt trip you're laying on everyone isn't healthy." The words landed like little knives, each one twisting the same old blade he had been sharpening for months. I stood slowly, pulling my grandfather up with me, wrapping my shawl around his shoulders. "You planned this," I said, voice steady, even though my chest burned. "You told him to wait like he was luggage while you slipped off to sign papers behind my back." Dylan laughed short and cutting. "Papers, please. We've discussed this 4 times. You just refuse to listen because it makes you feel noble. But reality is caring for him. Full-time is killing your career at the dental clinic, our evenings, everything. I'm only doing what any responsible husband would." My mother finally murmured something about professional care, but Dylan shot her a look that silenced her. He always initiated the pressure, then let others echo it. That was his pattern, small violations building until I broke. We made it out to the valet line before security could get involved. I hailed the first cab, helped my grandfather inside, and told the driver to head toward our suburban neighborhood on the west side of the city. The strip lights faded behind us, but my mind raced ahead. How long had Dylan been planning this? I remembered the little things now, the repeated small violations that had been piling up for 11 months. First, it was forgetting. to pick up my grandfather's favorite oatmeal from the store, then hiding his old radio so the jazz music that calmed him disappeared. Last month, he had casually mentioned to my father during a Sunday barbecue that maybe it's time to look at options. Right in front of me, eyes on me the whole time, daring me to argue. Each time I pushed back, he would sigh and say, "See, this is why you're exhausted, Alexis. Your loyalty is beautiful, but it's blinding you." Guilt every single time, wrapped in concern. Back home that night, my grandfather dozed in his favorite recliner while I paced the kitchen. I dialed Sophia Rivera, my lunch buddy from the dental clinic where I worked as a hygienist. She picked up on the second ring. "Lex, you sound wrecked. What happened at the party?" I told her everything, voice cracking only once. Sophia had become my rock these past 2 years, the one person who never made me feel dramatic for caring. "Dylan crossed a line," she said sharply. "This isn't love, it's control. You need backup. Call that great aunt of yours tomorrow. And hey, I know a guy, Benjamin Hughes, an inheritance consultant who helped my aunt last year. He owes me a favor. Want his number." I wrote it down, grateful for her steady support. But the real weight hit when my phone buzzed an hour later. Dylan's text, "We need to talk. This stunt tonight changes nothing. He's going to that facility by next week, or we revisit the conversation about your hours at the clinic." Don't make me the bad guy here. I stared at the screen, the coercion clear as day. He was using my job, our shared mortgage, even my love for my grandfather to squeeze me into compliance. The next morning, I drove my grandfather to his usual park bench near the desert edge where he liked watching the sunrise. He hummed an old tune clearer than usual. "Laney," he said, suddenly using the nickname only he had ever earned. "You don't have to carry everything." Those words lodged in me like an ember. Growing up in a modest split-level house on the outskirts of Las Vegas, I had always been the quiet one, the straight A student who kept the peace while my parents chased their own social circles. My father, a shift supervisor at a local warehouse, measured everything by appearances. My mother stayed home, but filled the days with volunteer committees and perfect potlucks. Love was earned through silence and achievement, never given freely. My grandfather, Gary Ross, changed that. He was my mother's father, retired from 30 years teaching shop at the high school, and the only one who saw me. Every weekend when I was younger, he would pick me up in his old pickup and take me to the park, teaching me to spot shapes in the clouds instead of worrying about report cards. Even after the dementia started creeping in during my second year of community college, he remembered the small things like how I hated black coffee but loved it with extra cream, or the way I tapped my foot when nervous. My parents grew impatient speaking about him in the past tense while he sat right there. But Dylan took it further once we married 7 years ago. At first, it was subtle, small violations, like canceling our Sunday visits because the house needs quiet. Then came the comments at family dinners. "Alexis, you're wasting your prime years playing nurse when we could be traveling." Each jab chipped away, always delivered with that concerned smile that made me question myself. By the time we reached the 4-year mark of his decline, Dylan had escalated. He started accidentally leaving brochures for memory care facilities on the kitchen table. He would call my mother when I was at work and plant seeds about how exhausted I looked. "She deserves better than this burden," he would say loud enough for me to overhear later. The guilt trips grew sharper. One evening, after a long shift, cleaning teeth and calming anxious patients, I came home to find him on the phone with my father. "Ron, she's too emotional about this. We need to be responsible." My stomach twisted. That was the same phrase he used the night before the party, the one that had led to those secret arrangements. Sophia met me for lunch the next day at our usual cafe, off the strip, her eyes fierce. "Girl, this is classic coercion. He's not protecting you. He's protecting his image. Vegas social circles don't want a husband tied down by elder care. She slid me Benjamin Hughes' card. Call him. He specializes in these gray area estate moves. Might find leverage. I slipped it into my purse, the first real step toward fighting back. That afternoon, I sat with my grandfather on the porch, reading aloud from an old Western novel he once loved. He smiled faintly, squeezing my hand. You stayed, he murmured. Those two words carried more weight than anything Dylan had ever said, but the violations kept coming. 3 days later, Dylan announced over breakfast that he had scheduled a consultation with the facility for the following week. No discussion. He added, eyes locking on mine. This is happening, Alexis, or we talk about separating the finances. The threat hung there laced with guilt about how much I supposedly owed him for our life together. I felt the walls closing in each small cut building towards something bigger. My great-aunt Brenda Howard lived 2 hours north in a quiet desert town, the one relative who had always checked in with handwritten cards. I had her number saved for months, waiting for the right moment. That evening, with my grandfather napping, I dialed her. Brenda, it's Alexis. I need you. Her voice broke with relief. Tell me where you are, honey. I'm coming. The call ended, but my phone lit up again almost immediately. Dylan, we need to talk tonight. No more running. His tone carried that familiar mix of concern and control, the emotional noose tightening once more. I stared at the screen, knowing the next conversation would either break us or force me to finally choose myself. Little did I know, the hidden truth waiting in Benjamin's files would change everything. That evening, my husband walked through the door with his tie already loosened and that practiced look of concern masking the steel underneath. He set his briefcase down harder than necessary, the sound echoing like a warning shot. Alexis, we need to talk about that little stunt at the party. He started, voice smooth but laced with the sarcasm he wielded like a scalpel. Calling your great aunt behind my back? Dragging Sophia into our private business? You're turning this into some soap opera when all I'm trying to do is protect our life together. He crossed the room in 3 strides, eyes locking on mine, initiating the jab, exactly as he always did, never letting me speak first. Your grandfather's condition is progressing faster than you admit. 27 minutes of waiting in that ballroom was nothing compared to the years you'll lose if we keep pretending you can handle everything alone. I stood by the kitchen counter, my grandfather already settled in his room, with the soft jazz playing low on his old radio. My hands shook slightly as I gripped the edge, but I met his gaze. You initiated the whole setup, Dylan, telling him to sit there like he was extra luggage while you slipped away to sign those facility papers. And now you're twisting it like I'm the dramatic one. The words came out sharper than I intended, but every syllable felt earned after months of his small cuts. He laughed short and cutting, stepping closer so his cologne filled the space between us. Twisting, sweetheart. I'm the one paying the mortgage on this house, covering your dental clinic shifts when you call in exhausted from playing caregiver. Your loyalty is touching, but it's costing us. Remember last month when I had to reschedule our anniversary dinner because you refused to hire help? That's not love. That's stubbornness wearing you down. The guilt landed exactly where he aimed it. The same emotional coercion he had perfected over 7 years of marriage. I flashed back to those early days when my grandfather's memory first started slipping 4 years ago. How my husband had smiled at family dinners and said things like, "We all want what's best," only to follow up later in private with jabs about how my attachment issues were straining our future plans for kids and travel. My mother had nodded along quietly during those calls, but my father stayed silent, letting my husband steer every decision. You're making this about me again, I said, voice steady, despite the knot in my throat. But it's your control that's the problem. Hiding his radio-canceling visits, now this birthday party trap. What next? Changing the locks while I'm at work. He sighed dramatically, pulling out his phone to show me a screenshot of the facility brochure, the one he had been forwarding to my parents for weeks. See, this isn't punishment. It's responsibility. Your great-aunt Brenda lives 2 hours away in that tiny desert town with no real support network. You think she can handle his care better than professionals? You're romanticizing this, Alexis, and it's going to break you. His words carried that familiar psychological jab, making my choice sound childish while his felt logical. But I had already texted Sophia earlier, and her reply buzzed in, "Don't let him gaslight you." Benjamin Hughes called me back. He can meet tomorrow at noon. Bring any papers you can find. Her support felt like solid ground in quicksand, the new ally who had witnessed enough lunch break confessions to know this pattern was escalating. The next morning, I slipped out early with my grandfather for a short walk near the park, his hand steady in mine, despite the fog clouding his eyes. He hummed that old military tune again, clearer than usual, and murmured, "You don't have to fight alone, Laney." Those words fueled me as I drove straight to meet Benjamin Hughes at a quiet coffee spot off the strip. The inheritance consultant was exactly as Sophia described, sharp-eyed, no nonsense, with a folder already waiting. "Mrs. Scott," he said, shaking my hand firmly, "your friend filled me in. I've reviewed the preliminary docs your husband forwarded to the facility without your full consent. There's a pattern here. Small transfers over the last 11 months, redirecting some of your grandfather's pension into a joint account under your husband's name. Nothing illegal yet, but it's building toward full control." My stomach dropped. This was the major twist I had sensed, but never voiced the hidden truth that my husband had been quietly maneuvering finances while pretending it was all for my benefit. Benjamin leaned forward, voice low. He initiated contact with the lawyer 3 months ago, claiming power of attorney discussions. If you sign anything at that consultation, he scheduled it could lock you out of decisions permanently. I can help freeze things temporarily, but you'll need to decide fast. This isn't just caregiving pressure. It's autonomy. He's stripping away one paper at a time. I sat there absorbing the weight, the suspense tightening like a wire. Sophia had been right. Her quick introduction of Benjamin was escalating my fight in ways my husband never saw coming. I thanked him and drove home mind racing with the withheld information now burning in my pocket. That afternoon, my husband texted me mid-shift at the clinic. "Consultation is set for tomorrow morning. No excuses this time. Your father and mother agree we talked last night. They're tired of watching you burn out." The message carried his signature coercion, pulling my parents into the fold as always. But he had started the chain. I finished my last patient hands steady, only because I refused to let the panic show, then called Brenda on the drive home. "Honey, I'm already packing a bag." She said, her voice warm with that steady support the rest of the family lacked. "Just say the word, and I'll be there by evening. We've got room, and no one will force anything on you or your grandfather." Her words gave me the first real breath of air and dazed the new support, twisting the power dynamic just enough to spark real rebellion. But the violations kept stacking that night. My husband came home early, slamming the door, with a stack of documents in hand, his face set in that concerned mask he wore before delivering the deepest cuts. "I spoke to your mother today." He began initiating the confrontation before I could even set my bag down. "She thinks you're spiraling, Alexis, hiding calls, meeting some consultant behind my back. This isn't you. You're letting guilt turn you against the people who actually built this life for you." He dropped the papers on the table, pre-filled forms for the facility admission, his signature already there beside my parents. "Sign them tonight, or we revisit the clinic hours conversation. You know how much that job means to our stability? Don't make me choose for us." The jab hit hard, tying my independence to his approval once again, each word advancing his control like clockwork. I stared at the documents, the suspense building, as I realized Benjamin's warning was playing out in real time. My grandfather's soft humming drifted from his room, a quiet reminder of what I was fighting for. Sophia's earlier text echoed in my mind. If he pushes the papers, record the conversation quietly. Leverage. I slipped my phone into my pocket, hit record under the table, and looked my husband dead in the eye. You're not protecting me. You're erasing him and me along with it. His laugh was cold. Erasing dramatic as always. But fine. Keep playing hero. Just know this ends one way or another by morning. The threat lingered heavy and timed, forcing my hand toward a decision I could no longer delay. Just as I hung up a quick call with Benjamin confirming the temporary freeze on accounts, my husband walked back into the room with fresh printouts and a lawyer's letter in hand. The real fight was about to explode, and the hidden truth in those files was about to flip everything I thought I knew about our marriage. Just as I hung up with Benjamin, confirming the temporary freeze on accounts, my husband walked back into the room with fresh printouts and a lawyer's letter in hand. The real fight exploded right there in our kitchen, the air thick with the scent of reheated coffee and unresolved tension. He slapped the documents down, eyes narrowing as he initiated the final push exactly as always. Sign these tonight, Alexis. No more games. Your mother called me earlier and said she's done watching you throw away our future for some outdated sense of duty. This consultation happens tomorrow, or I'm calling the clinic myself to adjust your hours permanently. I kept my phone recording in my pocket, heart steady for the first time in weeks. You're the one throwing everything away, Dylan. I met with Benjamin Hughes today. He showed me the transfers you made over the last 11 months, slipping my grandfather's pension pieces into our joint account without telling me. That wasn't protection. That was theft, dressed up as concern. His face shifted from control to shock, then back to that cutting sarcasm. Theft dramatic. Much I was safeguarding our family assets. You think your great Aunt Brenda can pay for round-the-clock care in her little desert shack. You're forcing my hand here, sweetheart. Keep fighting, and you'll lose more than just weekends. The jab landed, but I countered sharper than ever. Lose. The only thing I'm losing is the illusion that you ever saw me as a partner instead of a convenience. Sophia witnessed enough of your comments at lunch last month to back me up, and Benjamin has the paper trail ready for a judge if you force this. That hidden truth dropped like a bomb, the revised will my grandfather had quietly updated 2 years earlier, with Benjamin's discreet help leaving everything to me in a simple handwritten codicil. My husband had tried intercepting it through my parents, but the consultant had locked it down. Dylan's mouth tightened, the power dynamic flipping in real time as the suspense peaked. You went behind my back with lawyers. After everything I've built for us. He lunged for the papers, but I stepped aside, voice calm and incisive. Built. You controlled. Every canceled visit, every brochure left on the table, every guilt trip about my job at the dental clinic. You initiated this autonomy grab months ago, and now it ends. My father Ronald and my mother Kimberly arrived unannounced 10 minutes later, pulled in by Dylan's earlier call, their faces pale under the harsh overhead light. My mother started with her usual soft deflection, but my husband cut in first, steering the attack. Tell her, Kimberly, she's being selfish. We all agreed professional care is best. My father shifted uncomfortably, but stayed silent, letting Dylan lead as always. Sophia showed up right after having driven straight from her shift when I texted the code word we'd agreed on. She stood in the doorway, like a shield, eyes locked on my husband. Dylan, the recordings and the financial logs speak for themselves. You tried to erase her grandfather and her choices in one move. Benjamin's already filed the hold. This isn't a discussion anymore. The room went still. My husband's face drained of color as the irreversible consequence hit him. the lawyer's letter confirming the will's validity, the pension restored, and my independence secured. He stammered something about misunderstandings, but the coercion had finally cracked. My mother whispered an apology that felt years too late while my father just looked away. The family dynamic shattered by the very control he had enabled. That night, Brenda arrived in her old SUV hugging my grandfather with the steady warmth the rest of us had forgotten. "Come on, Gary," she said softly, using his first name only because she had earned it over decades. "We've got space, and no one telling you where to sit." We loaded the car under cover of darkness, my husband watching from the porch with crossed arms, power stripped away for the first time. The drive north through the desert felt like shedding skin, each mile peeling back the layers of private coercion that had defined 7 years of marriage. Sophia rode with us, partway her presence, the support that turned rebellion into victory. Benjamin called midway, confirming the accounts were frozen and the will ironclad. "You did the hard part," he said. "Now, live the free part." We settled into Brenda's modest home on the edge of that quiet desert town, 2 hours from Las Vegas, the kind of place where mornings smelled of sage and no one measured love by appearances. I kept my hygienist job part-time at a local clinic, driving in 3 days a week, while Brenda and I shared the caregiving rhythm that finally felt chosen, not forced. My grandfather's good days grew more frequent in that peaceful setting, humming old tunes while we walked the dusty paths, his hand in mine, without anyone timing it. The major twist in those final weeks came when my husband showed up once unannounced, offering reconciliation, laced with the same old guilt trips. But I met him at the gate, voice steady. "You lost the right to decide for us the day you tried to abandon him at his own 80th birthday party. I choose me now. And him. And this life without your control." He left empty-handed, the irreversible consequence of his actions, sealing the end of our marriage. Papers arrived weeks later, divorce filed on my terms, the assets split fairly thanks to Benjamin's guidance. My parents reached out sporadically, but the distance felt earned, their silence during every escalation, speaking louder than any apology. My grandfather passed peacefully one spring morning under the wide desert sky, slipping away while Brenda and I sat with him, playing soft jazz. No drama, no abandonment, just the quiet dignity he deserved. I whispered my thanks, holding his hand one last time, the ember of his words still warm inside me. In the months that followed, I opened a small reading circle at the community center, blending my dental work with stories for seniors and kids, the inheritance from my grandfather funding it without strings. Sophia visited often, her friendship the steady anchor, and Benjamin became a trusted advisor for others in similar situations. The lesson burned clear: when someone you trusted uses love as leverage to strip your choices, the strongest move isn't fighting to fix them. It's walking away with your dignity intact, building a home where no one waits like forgotten luggage. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's the only way to finally breathe. Thank you for listening to my story. If my husband's calculated control ever made you question your own boundaries, what would you have done differently in that ballroom moment? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment.